My very first fandom is Star Trek, and you never forget your first captain. I've been known to have very passionate discussions about my love for the original series. Mr. Shatner,
Sounds erotic, actually.
I was going to help you plug the captains as well, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Plug the captain.
Yeah. You may do with me what you will, Mr. Shatner.
Under 8.
But I think you're the active member if you're plugging the captain.
I'm not. My question for Mr. Shatner
Thank
is,
God, actually.
when you did the captains, what new information did you learn about the captains that you didn't know before?
Well, essentially everything, because I didn't know anybody very well. I'd met the different casts. I must admit to my my utter shame that I've never really seen the show. I hardly have seen any of mine, actually, but that was due to the fact I don't like to look at myself. And there's a monitor right here that I'm staring at, like over there, and I can't stand it. So I don't look at myself at all, as little as possible. And for some reason, I never got to see the other Star Treks. So what I met was a variety of human beings who came up in this very difficult area of work, this actors and television, stage, and movies, and they're all experienced people who struggled so many years and with great difficulty, and then devoting their lives and to the deference of other parts of their lives. Every single one of them lost things that most people love and want because of the necessary time necessary to devote to doing the leading role in a series. Everybody in a series does that, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then the weekend is filled with other obligations devoted to the show. So families go by and marriages disappear, and your attention is on the family of the series, and that requires great sacrifice. And so here are these wonderful actors, these wonderful complex human beings that sacrificed so much for playing the part of the captain. It's diverse. I guess I have to refer you to see the documentary.
Wait, you're saying there was a show before ours?
Tough audience, Brett. Tough audience.
No kidding.
Is that Guinan at the microphone?
Nice
Yes.
look.
Fantastic. Look at that costume. That is amazing.
Thank you. My question is for everyone, and in particular, maybe Bryan, about the new series. One thing that I love about Star Trek and sci-fi in general is that it holds up a mirror to society, and it helps us look at society in a critical way and also a hopeful way, thinking maybe we can get here.
Yes.
And in this current scary world that we're living in, how do you see the new series and just sci-fi in general, the future of sci-fi, being able to like bring hope and help comfort people in these crazy times we're living in?
Well, one of the most exciting things for me in doing research for the new character of the new series was my conversations with Dr. Mae Jameson and talking about what inspired her about the original series, and hearing how she saw Uhura on the bridge and how that made her want to join NASA. And one of the most beautiful things about Star Trek is that you have people who see this show and they want to be scientists. They want to get into space. They want to make it to the future in one piece. And I think that is incredibly beautiful, because we do have to celebrate a progression of our species, because right now it feels as though we need a little help. And there's nothing like the guiding light that Gene Roddenberry hung in the sky.
I can like both.
What?
Yeah,
What's
that's
he
a
wearing,
very
Star
good
Wars?
point. That's a very. We can like both. We can like
Hey,
both a
come
lot.
on.
Oh, Star Wars.
Inclusion.
What are we talking about,
Gene's
accepting?
vision. Exactly.
That's right.
So the technology in Star Trek has always been amazing, and it's amazing how it influences real-world technology. So for everyone on the panel, what's your favorite Star Trek technology?
Excuse me, I have to say something.
Yeah.
Please.
Technology.
Technology. On our show, I'll just speak about our show. We had.
Which one? You were in
which
two.
one? I'm sorry. Next Generation. We had iPads on the show, and before anybody, I don't know if anybody thought about that or before, but we had iPads. We did
Well, didn't
everything.
Steve Jobs say that that's what it was modeled on? The pad from Star Trek? I think he
don't-
said that, didn't he?
Is that
That
what
it
he
was
said?
specifically what it was modeled after.
Yeah,
I think.
and that to me is the most amazing thing, is the exact same thing. And it's not that long ago. I mean, you're talking about when our show started and when the iPads came out, where technology is just driven, and especially with this boom of technology, with all the scientists and all the people that are in computers, stuff like that, it's just been crazy. I mean, you have watches that you make calls on, and everybody here is going, yeah, so.
I want a transporter. Where's the damn transporters?
Oh.
God, can't we get that going?
Yeah.
Those
Well, the
are
interesting
great.
thing about transporters is you get on the transporter pad, you're obliterated, you die, and then a copy of you is placed on the other side.
Unless
I'm
you're my
just
dog
kidding.
Didn't
and
think
you
about
die.
it that way. Okay.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't
I know,
happen.
you're like, never mind.
I think for me, the communicator, if somebody would just invent like a hand device where you
yeah.
could telephone or something like that.
Yeah.
You could carry, you could communicate with
Could you
people.
imagine? It'd be
You
so
could,
cool.
if somebody would just, it's like on the tip.
Yeah.
That invention should be made.
You could text.
You could text. What's text?
I like the idea of the replicator, particularly where food is concerned, because I like to think of the replicator as a metaphor in a way for what is possible, because we have plenty of food. There's food for everybody. We just can't figure out a way to get it to them, I think. I think that's the big problem. But, there's so many charities and so many organizations that require help, financial help. And I understand that because things like disease and the planet are mysteries. How do we fix these things? We don't know. So they need a lot of
Food.
financing. But food seems easy. We have food. I don't understand how there can be, certainly not in this country, a single hungry person. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It makes no sense, and America has a very high child rate where they're not getting their food.
Right.
And that seems mind-boggling.
So if everyone had a replicator, that would be solved.
Scott?
Well, we didn't have any fancy stuff, but we did have this glow-in-the-dark blue gel that we could rub on each other and decontaminate. And I was struck by that if everybody in the world had that, we could just go around rubbing gel on each other and decontaminating each other.
We're going to get along.
Be a
so
happy,
better.
happy, happy place. And captains will be getting plugged regularly.
Amen.
Is that too old for under 18 and under?
Thank you guys for being here, but my question is forward to William Shatner. Hello, Shatner. Hello. The one thing that comes to mind is in the 60s, there was an episode called Plato's Stepchild. It was a big deal because you and Aurora had the first, or at least one of the few, to have an interracial kiss on TV. Yeah. Now, I've heard her story, but I'm wondering from your side, what was going through your mind? Since during this time, in the 60s, it was considered a big deal to be.
Warm, moist lips. Slowly coming towards me. You know what I mean, Jerry? And it was wonderful. Are you kidding me? Beautiful woman. Yeah, that was what was going through my mind.
And what a great milestone in Star Trek history to be knocking down barriers. Star Trek is a very progressive show, and has so many of those moments to stand by, so many issues that it covered, and it was not doing so in a friendly environment. So hats off to Gene Roddenberry for fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
Hi. First, Bill, your Has Been album was phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My question's for Michael and Jeri.
Well, that's great.
He's engrossed in conversation.
My Has
We'll
Been
get back to
album
it.
was wonderful, but your next question,
No,
I'm
just
good.
wanna let
I'm
you
glad
know.
with the plug. The plug is good.
Michael and Jeri, what challenges did you find joining a series already in progress?
Good question.
It wasn't the first series that I had joined in progress, so that my very first series was another show called Dark Skies. It was a science fiction show as well, but it only ran one season, but I also joined that one kind of midway through. And I was an Army brat growing up, so I was always the new kid because we always moved around. So I was kind of used to it by that point. It's not easy to be the new kid necessarily, but for the most part, it was a very welcoming group, and you have to sort of quickly get the lay of the land and what fits in with the new group of people wherever you are, if it's a new student at school or if it's the new cast and you're the new cast member. But it's tough. I mean, it was not always easy. It was not always smooth, and it was compounded, I think, by the fact that I was replacing a character. They were writing a character out who had been there since the beginning and adding my character in. And it was also a new character. These writers had been writing for the past, 3 seasons for the same, I think 7 people or however many of us there were. And so they were all salivating to have somebody new and some new character and new stories that they could draw on. And it was a very rich character because she wasn't even starting out human, so there was a lot of growth potential. And so a lot of the attention shifted in the show when my character was added. And a lot of the scripts centered around 7. If it wasn't the A storyline, it was a big B storyline. And that's not easy for actors who have been there 16, 17, 18 hours a day for the last 3 years, every day. And so it's hard. You're put into a situation where it's going to ruffle somebody's feathers, and it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, and somebody's going to feel frustrated. And fortunately, the writers were great about building Seven's relationships with the other characters, and it ended up being very rich for a lot of the characters. The Doctor's and Seven's relationship, I think, was wonderful.
I agree.
Seven and Janeway's relationship was a wonderful, adversarial at times, mother-daughter at times. They just became very rich opportunities story-wise for other characters as well, which is good. But yeah, it's not always easy being the new kid. But how was yours?
It was really not that difficult because I knew that all, like this exact same thing Jerry's talking about, these things could exist where people could resent the fact that you're there. I mean, I've seen it on other shows, not Star Trek, but other shows I've been on where a character has come in and they weren't treated well. But it was 2 things for me. It was definitely they had me there for a reason, and all I was concerned about was really doing the best job that I could do, and I really didn't think a lot about the rest of it. I didn't let that come into anything. I just came in, I was there, on time. I did, the work, and I think it became a lot easier because, and in fact, I talked to Nana Visitor just recently, and they all, she said pretty candidly that they all were like a little put off by the whole thing. But when they realized that it wasn't going to be the Michael Dorn show, that I was basically part of the crew, they lightened up a little bit. And also, on Next Generation, we were serious about the work, but between takes, we were out of control. There was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of fun. There was a lot of,
Singing.
a lot of singing. There's a lot of imitations of actors that Brent and I were just
And
going.
in fact,
and
would you do dueling?
no, we're not going to do that. No, because you know what? You have to be.
They
You have
won't
to
do
have
the
a
same
history.
imitation.
You have to have a history. You have to know old Hollywood to get these, because we've done it before, and people look at us like, "Who's Gregory Peck?"
All right, wait a minute.
You people know who Gregory
Wait a
Peck
minute.
is,
Who's
don't
Gregory
you?
Peck? Do you know Gregory Peck?
I would love to hear a Gregory
All
Peck
right, here
impression.
you are, ladies and gentlemen, dueling Gregory Peck.
I don't think so.
That was 10 people. 10 people.
I was just going to say they're trying to sound loud to overpower the 90% of the
was
audience
half the
who was too
audience.
young to
But
know
no,
what it
but
is.
anyway, but I.
I take it you're not going to do it.
We're not going to do that.
Okay.
But we. But the thing was that when I went to Deep Space, it was a very serious show, and I was.
You know what happened to Ted Cruz?
Huh?
You know what happened to Ted Cruz? You're getting awed off the stage. You know.
Tough crowd, man.
Whoa, hey. Where's all this accepting and and all that stuff, guys?
Some no means no, everybody. No
But anyway.
means no.
Back to the question. It was after about 6 months, it got really easy, and everybody was very accepting, and I had a great time. And it was the transition wasn't that difficult. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Next question, please.
Hello. I really love the relationship between Spot the cat and Data, and I was wondering what Data might have learned from Spot the cat that he could not have learned from his human comrades.
Well, how to lick his paws, which I feel, excuse me. No, actually, and I've said this before, I love cats. I really do. I think they're just adorable creatures, and I just did a PSA for the state of New York asking them to pass legislation to stop removing claws from cats because it's an absurd thing to do. And I don't know if Data learned this from Spot, but I learned from the cats I worked with that they are among the worst actors in the universe. Stay away from them if you're on stage or in a film with them because they don't know what they're doing. And the writers took great joy in writing Spot impossible things to do. And only once in the entire experience did Spot deliver on the first take. And that's when it said, Data feeds Spot tuna in a can. And first take, yeah, right there. But that was it. So I don't know. You'll have to ask Data that question.
On the subject of kindness to animals, there are a lot of cats and dogs out there who need homes, so if you're inclined at all, go adopt one. They need love, and you need love too. Get it from an animal. They'll return it.
Hi, my question's for Brent Spiner. The character of Data was always really important to me growing up, and I really related to him. So I just wanted to know what inspiration you drew upon to portray the character.
Really, because there wasn't really a precedent for how to play an android, I just drew upon imagination. There was no, but I felt very confident that it would be fine, whatever I came up with, because it's very difficult to say, oh, well, an android wouldn't do that, because we don't know what an android would do. But I don't know, the character, I was more inspired by the audience and the viewers. That's where I drew my inspiration from, because I feel like it was a symbiotic relationship that the audience and I had in determining who Data was and what was really going on with them. Data could say again and again and again, I have no feeling. and the audience would paint the feeling on him themselves. So I really felt kind of I could do anything, and the audience would help me along.
You know, I have to say that there was one thing, one of my best favorite episodes, has nothing to do with my character, was where Data builds the child.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of The Offspring, and at the end of it, the child dies, or ceases to exist, or whatever the case, and he comes back on the bridge, and they'll say, "Are you all right?" And he says, "Yes," and he goes back to his chair, and he sits, and for some reason, I don't know about the audience, but for me, it was like you were expecting something, and he gave you nothing. And it was probably the most powerful thing that Data's ever done for me, or the character, because it was like, as an audience, you kind of expect a lot of stuff, and Brent was just like nothing. And it was a great moment.
Why, thank you, Michael.
That's okay.
You've never said that to me before.
That is our last question, but I would like to do something here today. I would like everybody in this room to reach out to the person next to them and take their hand. Everybody hold hands. Take a moment. Everyone in the room, please take hands with the person next to you. And as we chart a path to the 23rd century, let's make a promise to everybody in this room. Look at each other and make a promise to leave this room with love, leave this room with hope, leave this room taking responsibility to craft a path to the future that Gene Roddenberry imagined.
Yes.
Promise. I would like to have a quick moment of silence for Leonard Nimoy, for Anton Yelchin, for everyone who has contributed to Star Trek in a magnificent way and has moved on to the great beyond. A moment of silence, please. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.